again. This recipe is going to be for spaghetti squash carbonara. At least I hope so. I hope I can figure out how to put two videos together. This is my first couple of videos, so might be in two videos. We'll find out. If you're on a low carb diet, and I am, I'm 10 weeks post-op from gastric sleeve surgery. I am omitting the bacon in this recipe because my stomach is not tolerating lots of meat yet, especially not fatty meats. So right now I've been eating pretty much vegetarian. So this is pretty good for me. This is a spaghetti squash, and there's lots of ways you can cook it. So I'm going to show you how I cook my spaghetti squash. It's very simple. Knife, spaghetti squash, a little salt and pepper, and some olive oil, and a pan. That's my oven. It just went off. It's been preheating to 400. It's going to cook anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour, just depending upon how big your squash is. Mine isn't too big, but I did have it cold, so it's probably going to take closer to an hour to cook. When it's done, it will be fork tender all the way through. You should be able to hit the outside. So knife straight in, and it will almost crack like a pumpkin. Pull it all the way down. Use some force. Come back around. Go all the way down again. Crack it open. You'll notice it looks like quite a bit like a pumpkin on the inside. Oh, hang on a minute. My phone's ringing. It looks quite a bit like a pumpkin on the inside. It has like a mushy center. It has seeds in there. We're going to take all that out. I'm going to go get a spoon because I forgot that. And we're going to use a big spoon, just like you would with a pumpkin. You're just going to pull all that middle stuff out. The texture is very similar to a pumpkin. And all that's coming out. Okay. There's one side with all the goo in the middle out. Go to the other side. And it's called spaghetti squash because once it cooks, the meat of the squash kind of resembles the texture of spaghetti. It shreds into something that looks like spaghetti and doesn't have a whole lot of taste. Therefore, it's good to cook with because you can make it taste like whatever you add. And in this case, today, I'm going to make it taste like Parmesan cheese and garlic. And it's going to be something similar to a pasta dish. These are also great to just leave them halved. Once they're finished, fill them with some marinara, meat sauce, whatever you like, and then cover them with cheese and bake them again. They're great. So I'm just going to put salt and pepper on the cavity, both of them. And I'm going to put olive oil on the inside as well. Not a lot, just a little bit. And this will just help it keep from drying out while the rest of it gets done, not just the outside. Because the inside is going to take, of course, longer, but you want your outside to stay nice and juicy. Now, some recipes say roast face up, some say face down. I don't know which is the right way. I roast face up. So face up for an hour, 400 degrees in your oven, anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour, just based on how big your squash is. So we'll be back after. Okay, it's now been a little over an hour. My spaghetti squash cooked for about 35 minutes, and it was mostly tender, but it wasn't completely. So I turned off my oven and just let it sit in there for another 10 minutes. And then I took it out. I let it rest. So it's still warm, but I can actually touch it. It's not like molten lava. So this is what it looks like when it's roasted. nice and crusty sometimes around the outside. Remember, we put that olive oil in the bottom. That makes it nice and juicy. And now we're just going to shred this with a fork. Basically, all you got to do is take it and run your fork right along the side. And you'll see it turns into this stringy, let's see if I can get it up close here, a little bit of strings that kind of resemble spaghetti. If you use your imagination, it looks like spaghetti. And if you're on a low carb diet, it's very easy to just pretend something is spaghetti because you don't have it. So, just going to shred all of this. And as long as you cooked it enough, it should shred relatively easy. I'm going to shred it into this bowl over here. It will clump up if you didn't cook it long enough. If for some reason you get it out and it's not shredding for you, pop it back in the oven for a while. Because if it's not shredding properly, it's going to be tough. I guess if you like your pasta super al dente, then undercook it some, but the taste isn't there. I don't think it is. Because like I said, this is going to taste like whatever we're cooking it in. We're going to be cooking it with a lot of garlic. So it's going to taste garlicky. Alright. There's pretty much one half. You want to try to get as much as you can. This recipe is going to cut into fourths, so each one is going to get 1/4 of this pretty much. And then for me, since right now I'm on week 10, I will probably cut that fourth into at least halves, maybe thirds. This is really the first time I'm making this particular recipe, so I'm not exactly sure how much I'm going to be able to eat. Oh, there's a little piece of shell for me. Take that out. Oh, there's a leftover seed. You might have left some of those in, just pull them out. It's fine. Like I said, we're just shredding it over here. Prep work is important. I generally do a lot of my cooking on Saturdays, simply because I work full time and I work about 45 minutes away, so I'm driving quite a bit every day. By the time I get home, I'm tired. So I try to prep as much as I can, pre-cook as much as I can, put items in the freezer so that my daughter can pop them in. That way, when I come home, I don't have a reason to be like, oh, I have to cook dinner and then I have to go to the gym. I can just not have excuses. Now, that doesn't mean that I always go to the gym because I don't have excuses. It just means that I can't use that I have to cook a elaborate, healthy dinner as my excuse. Okay, so I've gotten most of the meat out of there. There's a little bit left. Get as much as you can. And try not to damage it. You want it to have that texture. Okay, now we are going to move over to my stove. Ooh. Forgive me, I am no expert at this, so there we go. Okay. The original recipe calls for bacon, 6 slices to be exact, and at this point you would put your stove on medium-high. You would fry those pieces until they were nice and crunchy, and then you would saute your garlic in that bacon grease. As I stated before, my stomach is not handling meat right now of any kind, so I am trying to eat vegetarian. So what I've done is I have in this little bowl here my garlic, about 4 cloves, and I will admit that I am lazy with chopping garlic. I actually use the mince that comes from the produce section, the refrigerated produce section of your grocery store. 1 tablespoon equals 3 cloves of that, so I've used 1 tablespoon and 1 teaspoon in here. In addition, because I don't have the flavor from the from the bacon, I have added 1 shallot. A shallot is a very mild flavor, it's somewhere between garlic and onion. I love onion and I love garlic, so I add shallot. If you have someone in your family that doesn't quite like the taste of garlic quite so much, and I've just put a little olive oil in here and I'm swishing it around until it comes hot. If someone in your family doesn't like garlic all that much, first of all, tell them that they're wrong, and then try shallot. So just gonna pop all this right into my lightly greased pan. Try to get all those little pieces. Turn my heat up just a little bit. And you just want to saute this until the shallots are cooked a little bit, nice and fragrant. Our garlic, since it's pre-minced, we're not going to have to cook it as much. It's going to take about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes maybe, if my stove will ever heat up. Meanwhile, while this is working, I have mixed up the egg mixture. So this is 2 eggs, salt, pepper to taste, 3/4 cup of Parmesan cheese grated, and I've also added a teaspoon of dry parsley flakes. The recipe actually called originally for fresh parsley. I don't have that. I forgot to get it in the grocery store, and I'm not going back for it. So I'm using dried. I believe in using what you have, so that's why that's here. I'm going to set that right there because we're not going to use it just yet. I apologize, my pan is, there it goes, okay. So I'm just going to saute up, give you a look here. Saute up my garlic and my shallots. They're going to get nice and a little on the caramelized side. You just don't want that raw garlic or raw shallot flavor, simply because it's overpowering. Once you cook it just a little bit, it becomes a little more sweet, a little less strong. This will probably be the last one that I cook today. Like I said, I mostly do most of my cooking. I'll do the rest of my prep the rest of the day. Simply because this is the only way I can continue to eat as healthy as I can. Let that swish around there for just a few more seconds. Now we have our cooked spaghetti squash. And once those shallots start to become nice and translucent, that means they're pretty much to the point where we want them to be. Just like an onion, you want it to turn translucent. And you'll notice the smell is slightly different. The fragrant, it's very fragrant, it's delicious. I'm just gonna pop this spaghetti squash down in here with the rest. Put my bowl over here for this. And I'm going to mix all of this around. Now I don't have to cook the spaghetti squash anymore because it's already cooked. What I'm trying to do right at this point is to mix in the garlic and the shallots and make sure that my spaghetti squash is nice and hot. Because for this next part, you're actually going to use the residual heat in your pan and the residual heat in the spaghetti squash to cook your egg mixture. Why do I do that? Because if you pour your eggs in over this heat, you will have spaghetti squash fried eggs or scrambled eggs. Oh, I got a seed. I'm going to take this out. You might find some of those. It's fine. Just take them out. Nicely incorporate really hot just about there. If you have any pieces of your spaghetti squash that are stuck together, kind of break them up. Nice and hot, nice and hot. We are there. I'm going to turn off the heat. And I'm going to move my skillet over here. And I'm going to add my egg mixture quickly and then stir. That's immediately going to start coating the spaghetti squash and that egg mixture and that cheese mixture. And you'll smell it. The Parmesan is going to start cooking and it starts to smell lovely. The residual heat that's in the pan and in the spaghetti squash is going to cook those eggs. And if you're making the meat version, at this point would be when you were going to add your bacon back. But we have no bacon, so we're not baking it then. Just gonna make sure that that's all switched together pretty well. Your Parmesan cheese to start to melt. You need to move it back on your heat just a little bit. That's still off, but just back on the warm burner. Do that. I'm gonna move mine back on the warm burner just a little bit to make sure that our Parmesan gets melted, because now we've tempered the eggs. We brought them up to temperature and they're not going to fry now. They're gonna slowly finish cooking. I apologize for my sniffling. I don't have the COVID, I promise. Just allergies. Fall here in Kentucky makes my allergies go insane. Okay. Now I'm just trying to get all of that Parmesan to melt. Okay, I think we're there. To serve it, I'm going to, whoop, the towel fell. I usually serve in a bowl. I like the way it looks. And I get a pair of tongs because you can do this little twisty thing with it. I'm gonna grab about a quarter of the mixture. This is for me, so I'm going to actually go less than a quarter. And like I said, I am 10 weeks, so I don't eat a whole lot. I am going to kind of twist it just a little bit, just like you would pasta, to kind of give it that twisty look. And it is going to be a little juicy, probably juicier than spaghetti. But let me turn my camera around so that you can see the finished product. If I can figure out how to do that, never mind. So here's your finished product. This is a spaghetti squash carbonara, and I will post the macros in the comments. Thank you. Hi, I'm Crystal. Welcome to my very first cooking video. She'll be nice. I am a bariatric patient. I am nearly 10 weeks out. This recipe is kind of geared towards keto and bariatric patients, but is delicious and can be for anybody. So this is my pimento cheese. It has very few ingredients. So the first ingredient is 4 ounces, and this is the third less fat cream cheese. 8 ounces or a cup of 2% cheddar. 1 jar or 4 ounces of pimentos. This is the diced version. And 2 tablespoons of mayo. This is the olive oil version. I try to use the less fat. The spices that I use, you can use what you like. In here I have a 1/4 teaspoon of onion powder, a 1/4 teaspoon of paprika, and I use 2 little packets of Splenda. You can use a sweetener you like or remove the sweetener. I like just a little bit of sweetener. So the first step, this takes a very few minutes, is I'm going to I've had this cream cheese sitting on my counter. I'm going to kind of mix it up just a little bit so it's going to be easier for me to mix my other ingredients into it. I'm going to mix my spices in first. And just kind of push those in with the fork. You can find the original recipe on the internet if you look for keto cream cheese. The original recipe uses garlic powder as well and no paprika. I like the color of the paprika. I think it makes it look even more pimento-y. And it uses half the amount of pimentos. But I like the extra pimentos, so I'll put it in there. Next I'm going to add my mayo. 2 tablespoons of that. I suppose you can use if you like the avocado mayo, use that. Or if you like the full fat version, use that too. You'll just have to adjust the calories. I'm going to post the calories, the fat, the carbs, all that good stuff. So kind of mix that in. It'll be nice and creamy. You can see we're getting more of a liquidy texture. The whole jar of pimentos, and it's going to be already open, of course. There we go. I don't drain it. You can if you like it a little less liquidy. I don't. I like it a little more liquidy, so it's going in. I love the smell of those things. I don't know what a pimento is. Apparently it's some sort of a pepper because the jar says ingredients are pimentos, so whatever those are, I like them. And they don't really have any calories. They have some carbohydrates, but the amount that you're eating has practically no calories. So right now we kind of got a cottage cheese, a pink cottage cheese texture. In goes the cheddar. You can really use whatever kind you like. This is the 2%, the lower fat and lower calorie content. You're gonna mix it in really well. And mixing the wetter ingredients first will make this step so much easier because the cheddar is kind of hard to mix in if you don't. It's going to look a little wet, but as it sits, it's going to kind of sit up a little bit, so don't worry about that. It is, like I said, look a little bit liquidy right now, but it's not going to be when it sits. And this recipe makes 8 2-ounce servings. And that's it. Done. So this portion, you can stop there if you're not a bariatric patient. I'm going to turn my camera slightly to my little setup here, which is my kind of bariatric setup. I've got my little scale here. I got this scale off of Amazon, and I have my little cups. And these little cups I also got off Amazon. They're great. They're microwave safe, dishwasher safe. They're great, and they're disposable. I get a package of 50 of them for like 15 bucks. Super cheap. So, I also got my scale. It was on like the deal of the day. It's great. So I'm just going to turn it on. I've got it set on ounces already. Set the cup on, and then hit the tare button. So you bring it back to 0. And then I'm just going to put 2 ounces of the pimento cheese in here. Once it tells me it's at 2, I'll stop. These refrigerate for about a week in the refrigerator, and each day they get a little more tasty. That's a little too much. Okay, there's one. Top on. It goes. These little cups also go very well in the freezer. I have my freezer stacked full of chili, all kinds of little items in there that I've made. Of course, the pimento cheese is not freezer safe, but these little cups are. They're great. And they're cheap and disposable. If you lose them, leave them at work, whatever. It's okay. You have them all switch. There should be 8 of these little cups nearly exactly. Might be a little off. Whoop, drop a little bit. This is what I get for not moving my bowl close enough. And the important part of your eating is measuring your food. So scales and these little cups come in so handy. I always make a mess. Try not to. Too much. And I'm just going to keep going with the rest of my recipe. And that's it. You have keto, pimento cheese, my version of it. I will post the stats for the nutrition information in the comments. And thank you for watching.